you're traveling. So that's what I really like about it. Actually, when I packed up my bike to do the video and I got back on it to take it home, I just wanted to keep going. So it was such a nice day. And so, yeah, so it's good to meet you all.
Thanks, Vicken. Okay, so actually, even panelists right now, if you could mute yourselves maybe in between questions, I think Zoom must be having kind of struggling. So Sarah's next on my screen, so you want to unmute yourself and give us the same kind of introduction that Megan just did.
Hello, ladies. Nice to see everybody. It's so good to see your faces, even if it's like this. I'll take it. I ride an HD lowrider. I didn't do much motorcycle camping in the past before I had this group to do it with, because I mostly rode longer trips with my dad. And although we did a lot of miles, he liked to stay in hotels. So I've learned a lot more among the ladies, to be honest, when it comes to motorcycle camping than I did with him. Yeah, what else am I supposed to say? I live in Portland. I help Corinne run the group. I had to hang up with the video, so I'm gonna post it later today. It's probably a little more fun than it is educational, but the point of this was to just give people different bike styles. So I don't have a fender. I mean a back rack on my fender. I just have bags. So you'll see. But yeah, that's about it.
Thanks, Sarah. Okay, MJ probably is not in my list because she was the last one in. You want to unmute yourself, Marissa, and tell us about your bike?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yay! My internet finally decided to start cooperating. So I am Marissa, also known as MJ. I ride a 2017 Harley Sportster Iron 883 XL. She is right back there. There we go. I've been riding for maybe 5 or 6 years or so. My first moto camping trip was Bro 3, actually, Babes Ride Out 3 down in Joshua Tree, San Diego. So that was super awesome. I did it on my own, actually. I didn't know anybody. I just showed up to the event. My boyfriend at the time, now fiance, helped me pack my bike. He actually built for me a really shitty aluminum frame sissy bar because my bike didn't have one, and that was our best option at the time. I couldn't find it. We have it here somewhere. I was going to show you, but it actually sort of looks like, oh, sorry, we're opposites here. It's weird. Okay, it almost looks like that ramp that's like right behind my shoulder. It was just like this square piece of shit. Anyway, so moto camping for me has kind of been an adventure, and I have refined the process over the years. I still probably don't have the best process, but I like kind of doing it a little haphazardly because it's what I got. And I hope that that helps other people feel like it's accessible too. I like the sissy bar one because I don't have to deal with the bags or anything. Someday I'll probably get saddlebags, but honestly, for my bike, I have not been able to actually find a good option to buy online. They don't really make custom saddlebags for Sportsters, I think, because they're too small and the swing arms get in the way. So anyway, sissy bar works. Love about moto camping, it just feels like an adventure. You kind of feel like, okay, all I have is what I can bring with me, and I can rely on other people, you know, if I'm going in a group, but it feels very independent, which I love. Are we talking about our funny anecdotes right now? I don't have a funny one. Okay.
You don't have
I don't have a funny one.
Funny ones about some of you.
That's good. I have a funny one about you.
I have some funny ones about you, MJ. We could come up with a few.
Oh, good. No, I was gonna actually talk about the first dream roll that I was on with you guys was not last year, but 2 years ago when we were riding down by Sisters, and we hit that freaking beautiful stretch of like alien highway where, you guys, I shit you not, we were driving down and it was normal Oregon scenery, like mountains, pine trees, lakes, and then we just turned this like quick corner, and all of a sudden the scenery was completely opposite. There was no green anywhere. It was like a birch tree burnt forest. So all the trees were white and black, and like black from burn marks, and then new trees were coming up, but it was fall, so they were all yellow and orange, and it was just something otherworldly. And at that very moment when we were riding, it struck me because it was so beautiful, and I was just like awe-inspired. I had a hard time focusing on the road. But then the best part was like when we got to our next stop and everyone was like, "Oh my God, did you see that?" And we all had the same reaction despite, you know, kind of traveling independently. And so, you know, that's just one thing, we get to like see really cool shit, and then we get to talk about it and reminisce about it. And so, yeah, that's one of my fun, favorite memories, I guess, of moto camping.
Nice. Thank you. Julia, can you unmute yourself and give us a little introduction?
Yes. Hi, guys. I'm Olya. I ride a 2017 Triumph Street Twin. And I've been riding probably like 5 years now. It's really my second bike, and like the bike I'm probably going to keep for a while. And I love it. And I feel like it does a lot of kind of things good, like city riding, and also I can do motor camping. So, love that. I don't have any super funny stories, but I've had things fly off my bike while, like, you know, you just set them on there, think you're all packed up and ready to go, and then they just take off, and you're like, oh, yep, gotta stop. So definitely, especially after filling up my bike at the gas station, I always now check that my tank bag is on my tank bag, not just sitting on the back of my bike. So that's happened a couple times. But I just love motor camping. I tried it pretty quickly. I think I actually was still on my Rebel when I did it for the first time, and that was like, oh, cool. And then, yeah, the Triumph that I got, I was like, okay, I gotta put the rack on just to make sure I can do this because it's so cool. And then I found these girls to go out with, and it's been really fun. It's a great experience, just like everyone said, just being kind of solo but at the same time together at the same. So looking forward to hearing from all of you.
Thanks, Julia. All right, and Melissa, it should have been, actually they're describing their bikes well. Melissa is our last panelist with her dual sport. You want to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Hi, so I'm Melissa, and I ride a 2019 GS 1250, pretty big bike, the biggest bike I've had so far. I've ridden probably close to maybe 10 years now. I started with a really small Honda CBR 350 or 300. Anyway, and I have moto camped, so I actually pulled up a little picture of, yep, there. That is my Ducati Monster that I put some bags on for moto camping, and I traveled solo with it and in a group too. So I've done the sports bike moto camping, and now I have the bigger bike. So funny anecdote, really, the funniest thing I can remember is Dream Roll. When we went to Dream Roll, I at the time I had a 700 GS, so it's kind of in the middle. And we were gonna go eat to, I think, to a Mexican restaurant. And so I had taken off the panniers. You can take them, put them on and off. So I had taken them off, and then I was like, well, if we're going, I'm gonna go ahead and put them back on. So I put them back on. And as we're riding to the restaurant, I was thinking, you know, I don't think I really tightened the screws on the pannier. And just as I was thinking that, I felt the weight of the bike shift where it was heavier on one side. And I look at my rear view mirror, and my panniers on the road doing 360s, and Heather is trying to avoid it.
Well, Kitty never got done.
And
Food got in there, it never got given to him.
that pannier was my food pannier. So it had eggs in there. And luckily, I only broke one egg. But the takeaway for that, and I do this now every time, is make sure that those panniers are like secure before I write off.
You know, it's been a theme for the dream roll that people leave their bags either open or one falls off or something, because I don't know if Chelsea's on here. I didn't see Chelsea on here, but Chelsea was with us last year and was riding Corinne's bike, and I think twice left the saddlebag open, and it was just flapping open on the highway. So there was a lot of trying to communicate, and then it was like maybe an hour after that happened, we stopped again at a gas station and she did it again. And we were like, oh my God, we have to double check our stuff.
So that's a good segue into the first question that I have. And that's, like Sarah said, Chelsea was riding my bike, and those, I frequently leave those open. They buckle and unbuckle. And I've never lost anything out of them, but I now tie a little handkerchief, like a pink handkerchief on my handlebar. And when I see that, just as I'm starting off, I go, oh yeah, did I buckle those things? Did I check all my stuff? So that's my strategy for making sure. It's just a little reminder to me. Do the rest of you, Melissa, do you have a strategy like to check those panniers, or is it just something you remember to do?
So I now double check them. So I have a different system now than I did before, but now I just really make sure that I'll even jiggle them just to make sure that they stay seated, and also locked, because I've done that too. I've closed the lid on the pannier and forgotten that I didn't lock it, and so it's flipped open, and I've also had things fly out. I've lost a few gloves that way. So now it's almost like that pre-flight check. You know, even though I put everything on there before I actually get back on to ride away, I'll just make sure everything's locked and secured.
Cool. Anyone else? Megan, do you have a strategy?
Well, I'm pretty OCD, so I'm like the kind of person who can't leave the house on a day-to-day basis without checking everything. So I haven't had any incidents where I lost anything or flew off, anything fell off or flew off. So yeah, just do a walk around maybe, or just do a checklist in your head. Like if you open your tank bag, got out your wallet, got gas, put it back in, zip up tank bag. Like I just say it sometimes. So I think my biggest ordeal with packing up a bag and having it's just a bag is the straps coming loose and just whacking you while you're riding. So whenever I do a stop, I like to just double tighten everything for that. But yeah, these are really funny stories, and I'm really glad that nothing major has happened, but I haven't had that yet, fingers crossed. So but I have definitely piled up my little dual sport, not pretty. So yeah, I'm sure it's bound to happen someday. So but yeah.
Cool, thanks. We've got a couple questions in the chat. Someone's asking about, no, I can't find it, but somebody asked about rain covers. So when you get stuck in the rain, I know some of our bags have them, but maybe Sarah, do you want to talk a little bit about what you use as a cover?
Yeah. So on mute. I can speak on that actually, because my bags aren't waterproof. In my video, I kind of talk about that, but they do come with covers. But I mean, not just the bags, but even just my body, I like to keep an unexpected weather bag, and I explained that in my video as well, and everything I keep in it. as far as even extra thick socks, a raincoat, an extra base layer, because there's nothing worse than being cold and caught in unexpected weather. It makes it almost impossible and unsafe to ride. So I like to have that on hand. But as far as anything creative, I really think that maybe a lot of moto gear comes with things that you can utilize and get creative with. So, but mine personally came with rain covers. So, and they're soft cases. So yeah, that's what I do.
Cool, thanks.
I can add to that, just, you know,
Yeah.
my bags also came with rain covers, and I rarely use them. Like, the fabric is usually water resistant enough, so if it's just a tiny little sprinkle, I don't even put them on, because it's just, you know, goes through it, or dries really fast because we're going fast anyway. But the times that I've put it on, I've had issues with the flopping of the covers. Like, they actually you can't drive as fast with the covers on, I guess. And I actually had one of them rip like open once. So it kind of depends, I guess, on your cover and the brands you're using, but they're not as good as if you are trying to get like a real waterproof luggage. It's probably better, but it's more expensive, so you gotta weigh those options.
And there's not always a bunch of options for different kinds of bikes, especially in the sports bike arena and like urban bike. It's hard to find a lot of touring options. So yeah, you do get creative and zip tie things down tighter. So yeah, for sure.
You know what else are nice are those waterproof bags that are used for kayaking and
dry bags.
rafting. Yeah, you know, yeah, exactly. They're super waterproof and they're airtight, and they come in they're usually like that long shape, but they work nicely typically on the side, right? Like, so as long as you can strap it on easily and securely, those are really waterproof. That's actually the bags that you'll see it in my video, and Desiree in our group has one too. They're called Buzz, and they're really affordable, and they're just big, huge waterproof motorcycle bags, and they have tons of straps and hooks and stuff like that. So yeah, I agree too. The other thing is with yourself, you have to think ahead sometimes, because I've gotten caught in the rain and it doesn't help to put your rain gear on when you're already wet. So if you don't think ahead when you see those clouds and you know that you might hit rain, you got to pull over and get your jacket on and your pants before you get wet.
I'll chime in just because my setup is kind of weird, if that's okay. So yeah, for my bag, if you guys didn't watch the video, the main bag I use is a backpacking one. So it's ever so slightly water resistant, but I do have a rain fly that I got. I think this may have actually come with it, but they're cheap. You can get the right size from REI or Big Five or wherever. I keep this in my bag all the time. I never take it out. So no matter what trip I'm on, I have it. And I recommend doing that. It can fly off, but like if you saw my setup, I have all the bungees too. So as long as I set a couple bungees over it, it's unlikely that will happen in the rain. I've done trips where I have chosen not to bring my rain gear in looking at the weather, because it was like the last trip what we did was mid to late summer, and it was just super unlikely, and I was like, you know what, if it's raining, I'm not riding anyway. But the one before that, I did bring my rain gear. I got those Frog Togs. They're cheap, and space wise they kind of took up a lot of space. It was shitty, but they kept me dry. And I made that choice over other options because I could throw it on over my normal gear instead of having a different set of gear. So I still had my leathers on. I still had all my regular boots, all my shit. And they worked really well. They made me like a big wind sail because they puffed up big. But if you're looking for a cheap option that will keep you dry and keep you safe, they're a way to go.
I think too, we've got some gear. We've got a shared document about gear, because we did a gear swap and kind of education brunch. I don't know when that was, but I compiled all that information. So Marissa shared that at that point. So there's some additional information there if you want access to it. So someone asked about essentials, and I had that question on my list as well. What are the things that you would never, or maybe one or two things that you would never leave home without? And I don't know who pitched in last. Megan, you want to start?
Sure. Sunscreen. um, oh, wow. Earplugs. I have my writing earplugs. I also have my earplugs for sleeping. Because if you're on a run, I mean, whether you're solo camping or doing like a chill moto camp, or if you're on a run, man, that party doesn't stop. So, if any of you have been on the Oregon Run, Corinne, you have. So, yeah, it's earplugs, an extra. Let's see, what else do I do? My charger. For sure. I really love my charger because it has all the adapters, and I kind of go into it in my video. It's really slim. I carry that. Like I said, my unexpected weather gear bag, which I just use my the bags that my bike covers come in to pack all my clothes in, because they compress really tight, and plus they're there and I don't have to go buy anything extra. I like to bring, I pack in my dry bag all my camping gear, and so I really like to have like a blanket with me when I'm moto camping, just to lay out, and then I can lay out all the stuff in my bags so when I'm unpacking, so that's really useful. I'm sure I'm going to think of a bunch of stuff later, but sunscreen definitely. Chapstick. I've been without a chapstick. I know. It's like on a trip and it's just awful. Like, turn around and go home.
Sure.
But yeah, so
Thanks, Megan.
yeah, that's.
Olia, what about you?
Well, I feel like we're not talking about essentials. It's like, well, gotta get your sleeping situation. I mean, are we talking camping, right?
So I would say on an overnight trip, at least one night, there are probably additional essentials for like a run, like what Megan was talking about. But give us like two things you would not go overnight.
Jet boil, food, tea, whatever. You know, you gotta get your hot meal when you get there. Let's see. I'll probably, yeah, I don't know. I think it's just a sleeping situation. Like if you're going somewhere, you gotta get your sleeping bag and pad, and I do a tent, if anyone's curious. That's my, yeah, without food and water and sleeping, you're not camping.
Good point. So besides the obvious stuff, do you have other essentials, MJ, that you bring?
Yes, I would say so. And this kind of goes into regular camping, but then you have to find a way to make it work for your bike and your packing situation. But for me, you know, aside from the water issue, depending on where you're going, you really don't know what situation you're going to get yourself into. So you want to make sure that no matter what, you have a way to be warm and dry. And so if you're going to be overnighting, you want to bring a change of clothes. You want to bring potentially, you know, warm socks to change into that you don't wear out again the next day. They're just like sleeping socks or lounging socks or something. Same with underwear, a hoodie, you know, sweatpants, whatever, because if you do happen to get wet, and even if it's not raining, you know, y'all know you get wet from sweating, being sweaty. So like you need to be able to change out of that and be dry, because if the temperature dips at all, you're going to get yourself into a potential hypothermia situation, even if it's the middle of summer. You know, because if we get down into the 40s and you're wet and you don't have a way to be warm and dry, then you're kind of fucked. So definitely those are ways to think about it. Then you can go about that differently. My setup, I have a tarp so that I can make sure that there's a moisture barrier between myself and the ground. I throw that on the ground, or I use the not rainfly, but the tent footprint. And then I have a wool blanket I picked up from like a one of those military supply stores. for pretty cheap, and you can find better ones, I'm sure, somewhere. I kind of did it on the fly and wanted to pick one up quick. So, but that's been a really nice thing because they dry quickly. They don't get nasty. I mean, they do get nasty, but they're pretty good at wicking and insulating. And then the other thing, it's not necessarily a must-have, but it's been proven very, very useful, is those little break open warming packs that you can, you split them open and shake them and they get warm. And I've thrown one of those in my like sleeping bag foot box and slept like a baby. So definitely the warm and dry focus is what I would go for.
Good point. Good point. Okay. So, Sarah?
Can I add on that? Yeah, I think MJ, it was you that had that cool dry towel from REI that was really small and it dried really fast.
Yes.
I think we bought a couple of those.
REI camp towel.
Yeah, I bought a couple at Christmas. I'm gonna have to find. I gave them to my husband, but I'll be stealing one of those back for my gear. The only thing that wasn't mentioned, I agree. I'm really sensitive to the cold, so I bring a lot of stuff to stay super warm. I always bring my tire gauge because I had a season of dodgy tires. And I have noticed that a lot of gas stations do not have functioning gauges. So I always carry my own and I check my tires often. And the other thing I always carry on my bike is pepper spray. And I've never had to use it, but I'm not interested really in carrying a gun. So I keep a knife and pepper spray on my bike all the time, just in case I feel threatened. Which I usually don't. Nobody ever fucks with me. I don't know about you guys, but
I think that's true of most of us. Sarah and I probably would tell you that you need to carry quarters as well. We've talked during Sarah's year of.
My God, that was a bad season, and I had to get my tires completely replaced. But yeah, you need a lot of quarters if you're using crazy air systems at the air pressure things at the gas stations.
Yeah, we talked many gas station attendant into like giving us quarters out of after we've used all of our quarters. So quarters, and then I think on day trips too, bringing, like we've done ferries where it costs $1 to put your motorcycle on the ferry. Bridge of the Gods, lots of toll bridges in the.
Yeah, it's good to have a little spare change that you can access really easily. If you have the space too, it's not a bad idea to carry a battery charger with you. I had that. I was on a road trip cross country with my dad, and we had to. Our battery completely was dead, and we used some guy's like hot dog cart or something to charge our battery for a few hours. So thank God he had his charger with him. And the other thing, this is going to be super dorky, and I know, but when you've been riding long enough, you just don't give a shit anymore. When I've ridden in really hot weather, I've worn my Camelback. And I don't care how dorky it looks, it's super nice to be able to just grab the thingy and have cold water. And if you put a bunch of ice in it, it keeps your back cool when you're riding in really hot conditions. So if you don't mind looking like a big dork.
Thanks, you guys. Okay, so Lori was asking about small gas tanks and how to carry gas. I think none of us have, and we have a chopper now in our garage that does need gas, but we have, Megan would be able to speak to this a little bit, because on the Oregon run, which takes us usually all over the state, it's a different route every year. We've been in places for long periods of time without gas. So Megan, do you have a strategy for carrying?
Yeah, I have a decent sized tank, but and in my video, I also kind of explained how I like to carry the gas. I just carry one of those fuel bottles. I've never had to use it. Even if you're not empty and your group stops, top off when you can, you never know. I just take those fuel bottles and I like to secure them on top of my gear. I don't like to put them in my bags in case there's spill, and I see a lot of people that hang them on their sissy bars and whatnot. For personally, I don't like things flopping around when I'm riding, so I like to secure it down on top of my dry bag, which is on my rack. And it's something to be concerned about and something that you should be thinking about, but there are many times in many places that you will be okay. Just top off when you can, and carry an extra fuel bottle. And it's not something to worry yourself over in too much, you know. So yeah, so that's how I do it.
Thanks. Anyone else tips on carrying gas?
I can chime in if you want.
Yeah.
Or Oya, do you want to go?
Sure. I just use the Rotopax gas can when I do know that it's going to be a longer stretch. And I like that one because it has like a holes through the middle, so you can really strap it using the rock straps. That's the one that I recommend.
I love rock straps
it's-
so much. Sorry.
Yeah,
And the can is also flat, so
Yeah.
you can really put it on your rack. So I've done that. You kind of stack your can, then all the top bags on top of it, and you can strap it all together. So I think it's called Rotopack, something like that.
Does anyone carry propane tanks with them too? I think Melissa, you might, because I just got one of those little one burners from a friend that was giving stuff away, and I packed it when I did the video with a tank. And I was curious if you had any specific ways, or because I was like, oh, this is contents under pressure for real.
Yeah, I do carry. I actually carry two large propane tanks. So there's two ways. Well, and this is from the perspective of a larger bike. So I have the panniers. Touratech has these things where you can put them to the outside of the pannier, so they're outside of everything, and so they're not really taking up any space. And one setup I had where on one side I had the propane and the other one I had extra water, which actually helped a lot when MJ got the, yep, with gasoline in her eyes. I was able to just plop it right out and help her. But so with this bike that I have now, I don't have that set up. So I either have them in the dry bag or I have them tucked in the corners of the panniers. But I do carry them. You don't fill them up all the way because of the pressure. And one thing I did find out is that you have to be careful when you do try to open them, not to, I stripped on one of them, I stripped the mechanism to unscrew. And so I was down to like, thankfully I had another bottle, but I couldn't open the first one because I stripped the screw.
Melissa, you're getting a lot of comments in the chat about where he wants to go with you. You've saved many of us many times.
I recommend going with Melissa.
It's true. Rock straps are awesome. If you're a new rider, a new packer, they're just called rock straps, and I think commonly they work for everything. So a collection of those, they're not very expensive. We trade them around all the time. I always try to make sure to get them back to the people, hopefully everybody on this video chat. There's also, I'd have to find out more information from Amanda Zito, but I know that she was carrying maybe propane. I'm not sure. Something exploded in her bag last year when she was traveling from Oregon to Montana. And so it is something, the pressure is something to be aware of. I'm not sure how it happened, if it got too hot or what happened, but it's something to kind of pay attention to in terms of where you're packing that gas or the propane in your bike, and making sure that it's away from any kind of anything that will cause explosion.
Sorry, this is Stacy. Amanda's was packed too close to her rear pipe and it just overheated and exploded.
I thought that was good. So that is something as you're packing to be ultra aware of for sure. I'm glad Amanda's okay, but that could have been a terrible, terrible thing. So let's see what else. Now I have lost all the questions. When you pack, like Megan, you were talking about gas. I've had a gas can fall off before, and it was attached to a bungee, so it was just kind of hanging. But if you carry a gas can, now we just have a little one that gets all strapped in, just like Olia was talking about. Do you, when you pack yours, do you secure it with other luggage, or like how do you make sure it doesn't fall off?
Yeah, in my video I attach it, so you'll see if you watch that. It's I put it on the very top. So I have my dry bag with all my camping gear on the rack, and that's strapped down with the first straps of the rock straps, and then I take the gas, and it's got that carabiner on the tip. It's just it's like one of like the water bottle looking fuel ones, and then I run a strap through that and then do another strap over the top, and it really doesn't move, especially with those rock straps like we're talking about. It bungee cords are perfectly acceptable to use. They're great. They do stretch and loosen up as things get jostled, so that's why everyone's kind of a big fan of these rock straps, which are spelled ROK. And so yeah, I just put it right on top, and I haven't had an issue with it, but I do strap that carabiner into, like Sarah's saying, I have the dry bag that also has connect points on it. So if it does come loose, it's still connected to my bag. So, because my fear is one, it falling off and then polluting, and then of course, you lose your bottle. And so, yeah, so that's what I do.
Thanks. Well, yeah,
Mhm.
you had something else? No?
I did. Me.
Okay, go.
Yes, if you guys saw my video, I actually used one of those normal red little square doodads. I had to pick it up at a gas station once when I literally ran out of gas. That was not on a camping trip. That was on my old bike before I got the Sportster, and I was having trouble with it. But anyway, it has proven to be useful. I absolutely heed all of the advice that everyone has brought up already, where I don't, it's those red gas can doodads are meant to breathe anyway. So you definitely don't want to put it like in an enclosed space in case it leaks. And so it stays on the outside of my bag, but yeah, I super strap that thing in. It jiggles because my whole bike jiggles when I'm riding, but it is not loose. So you definitely want to make sure that whatever you're attaching is secure. Again, if you saw my video, the way I put my bag on my bike, the hip straps fit like a little seat for that gas thing perfectly. It is towards the back, but I make sure, my pipes get hot, but it's probably a foot away from my exhaust, so it's really not in danger of overheating there. I've never had an issue with it. But also a recommendation, because this is a dangerous thing, like if you are worried about it, don't plan ahead is the best advice for all of that. Like this is, that having the gas is great, but if you are planning ahead, if you're doing the due diligence of checking your route, of if you're solo, then maybe want to call ahead to gas stations to make sure they're actually going to be open when you show up, because we've had that issue where you show up and nobody's there and you're like, well, fuck. So if you're in a group, you get a little more leeway because a lot of times somebody else has gas, or you can work it out. Somebody can go run and get gas for you if you run out. But yeah, planning first, backup gas second.
Thanks.
Yeah, I would second that, because there's so much stuff online. Like every route you could ever imagine, someone else has done it. So just type it in and you'll find like a blog post, and they'll be like, that gas station that's listed is actually not there, or you know what I mean? Like there's so much stuff online for basically everything. But I also think, MJ's right. Regardless of if you're by yourself or with a group, if you plan your distances and you know how much mileage you can get out of your tank, and you just, really double check and make sure that you are always going to be stopping when you have plenty of time, you'll be fine. I mean, we've been in the middle of freaking nowhere, and I still feel like we could always find something and get help if we needed it. So as desolate as we are, most of the time our phones still work and there's some sort of resources around. It just takes a little research before you leave.
Absolutely. I'm going to chime in on that. It's the research, it's that preparation, and if it's something that is a big concern, make sure you check your insurance, what kind of roadside assistance you have. Not all insurance covers roadside assistance that's over 100 miles away. So So make sure you do have that. I mean, your people are going to stay with you if you're with people. That's the great part about riding with a group. But yeah, if you're stranded and you can't get someone to get you, double check that insurance before you go. And you can purchase it or you call them and they'll even extend it, and they'll give you a service that will extend that mileage on your insurance plans. So that's a good one. So yeah, just be prepared.
So we had a question about, and this is, Sarah and I have talked about this before too, about the weight. So when you pack your bike, how to, and Megan, you addressed this in your video too, how to kind of make sure that that weight isn't affecting the way you ride. Because I think a lot of us have been on bikes where it's super heavy and you go to lean into it normally like you do into a corner, and that bike really wants to go over. So Melissa's got some experience with this. I'll let you go first, Melissa.
So I've experienced this twice with, first with the Ducati. So, you know, it's just a street bike and I had a dry bag, 50-liter dry bag on it. And if you've never moto camped before, what I did, because before that, I had never done that before. I actually did a test drive around the neighborhood. I packed everything and I put it on there and did a test drive around the neighborhood. And it does affect how you handle. So, you know, that term flickable, you're not that flickable on there. So you want to make sure that if you have kind of like a top heavy, because I also had top heavy, just pay attention to where you park. That's also an issue if you are a tippy toe person, and now you have a heavy bike. If you're used to manhandling that bike to pull it over on a regular no gear, you want to consider where you're parking, so that you actually have some leverage with your feet to be able to pull it over. If you happen to drop the bike, which happened to me, and I was solo camping, just take everything off the bike so that you'll be able to tip it back over, you know, because it's a question of when, not if it's going to happen. So yeah, so I suggest just taking, just piling whatever you want on there and do a test drive, see how that feels, and then maybe even do a longer ride to test how your bike handles, and then you'll know. Also, braking distance changes because now you have all that weight in the back. So parking and cornering, you want to pay attention to those, I guess.
Yeah, and taking a test ride is such a good idea just to get a feel for how, I mean, I would say all of us, like everything you said, Melissa, all the other panels are like, yes.
Yeah, I agree. That's a great idea. The other thing, yeah, giving yourself more braking distance, knowing that you're going to take corners a little bit wider than you probably would. You're not going to be like leaning hard into your bike like you'd like to. You need distance from your friends, obviously a little more distance than you might normally create when you're in a group. And the other big point that I do put in my video is to check your PSI and look in your bike manual, because you have to load your tires a bit higher when you're fully loaded. It's like carrying a passenger on the back. So you should have probably, you know, 5 to 10 more PSI in the back based on whatever your bike's recommendations are. And both tires, but mostly for the back.
Thank you. MJ, anything to add?
Not really. You guys actually covered a lot. The only thing I would say is, you know, the reason like why we have different kinds of bikes here. My bike, the way I load it up, doesn't actually feel too different in cornering because I already have a low center of gravity. There's a little bit of a difference, and I get that shit tight, like it does not move. But braking, so it's easy to forget actually that I have stuff on my bike because the way I pack it is vertical in the back. I don't have the saddlebags that I can see in my rearview mirror. So, you know, just being mindful of that. And yeah, braking is still affected because there is more weight. So that's really all I have to say.
Thank you. All right, so we're getting close to 11 o'clock. I want you to all be able to get on with your day. So with the 4 minutes that we have left, can't remember who asked it, but now there's a lot going on in the chat in terms of good weekend. Oh, Jody, it was Jody who was asking about good weekend routes. So let's just end with what's your favorite weekend route? And then also if you have other ideas, or just right at the beginning, we had some other ideas for these virtual sessions. And thank you for everybody being here today and participating. We can do more of these. In fact, if we are continuing to be locked down in places, then it's good to see all your faces. And besides the virtual happy hours, we can be doing some education things. So if you have ideas about that, throw them into the chat or email me later. But let's end with each person's favorite route to do just on a weekend. Melissa, you want to go first? Or actually, Marissa, are you already unmuted? Maybe you're not.
No, but now I am.
You're on my screen.
I actually don't really have a favorite weekend. Somebody posted, I saw it pop up in the thing, 224 down to Detroit Lake. That is a lovely ride. I live on the west side of out in Hillsborough, so it's not like a full weekend ride. But I actually love taking 26 out to the coast. Because from where I am, there's not too many more miles of straight shitty 26. You get into the large twists. So there's no huge twisties out there. So if you're kind of a less experienced rider, that's actually a pretty good route to take. And there's camping off of that. There, everywhere out in the Tillamook Forest, there's kind of dispersed camping at a lot of places. Brown's Camp, Jones Camp. There's a couple, and I might be mixing up Route 6 with 26 at this point. We've taken both of them. The only thing to note is Route 6, actually, it has kind of shitty conditions. So if you're going to go that way, I would suggest taking a car out first to see what the road conditions are, because they tend to get a lot more washouts and a lot more of those, what do they call it? Steep grades or whatever, the grades wash away. So definitely, I like Route 6 better, but it's also more dangerous. And if you're packed down with shit and you hit one of those uneven grades that you can't see, especially in a corner or, uphill, downhill, it can really affect how you ride, especially if conditions are ever so slightly wet or whatever. Yeah, I think that's it.
Thanks. Melissa, you're next on my screen.
I saw Bend, and going to Bend on a weekend is awesome because of the roads, because you can take part of that 224 down to Detroit, and it's beautiful going down there for a weekend ride. I saw also Fossil. Love going over there, Carla. Oh, it's just a really great ride for a weekend. Up to Washington too. Up through Washington, there's some great roads up there. There's kind of like a loop. It's a long day ride. And I forget the roads. It's like 43, I think, up. Anyway, there's some really good riding up there too for the weekend.
Thank you. Megan.
Well, I do love the long rides and those long ride ideas. But sometimes on one of the Sundays when you've got to get ready for the week, but you still want to get a ride in, a good friend and I, we like to ride out to Estacada and just pack our tubes and go float out on the river for the day and then just ride back home. I mean, it's a nice ride. It's got a nice spot on the Clackamas River, and then it doesn't take up the whole day, but you still get it in, and it's summer. It's summer, so it's like every Sunday I want to be on the river and on my bike, but still have to be responsible and go to work on Monday. So, I do like that to get that in. So yeah.
Good point. Thank you.
Yeah.
And then Sarah, what about you?
Let's see. I'm just trying to think of some of our favorite ones we've done, like 47 Vernonia. That's Spitzenberg area. It's a lot of nice, fun little twisties. We've done that a couple of times. I love 26 going out to the coast just because of all the passes, but the other route that I really like now is the route that we've taken, 18, where you go through the Van Duzer corridor and you really don't climb much. It takes you to Lincoln City and that whole area, and 101, so you can just shoot up and down the coast. And then Heather and I used to ride it's to Estacada. It's like 211 or 212. I think it might be what you're talking about, Megan. And yeah, there's just some really nice 40-mile-an-hour sweet twisties for a long time in the forest. It's just beautiful paved road. You know, the pavement's great.
Beautiful
you don't
canyon
have to go too
view.
far. You don't have to drive too far to Portland to have a great ride.
Correct.
So yeah, I mean, those are just a few, but there's many more. And I'd really like to get out more to Eastern Oregon, the further parts of Eastern Oregon. And also I think whenever we can resume our group rides, I'd love to go north too and do some Rainier and some stuff, so kind of like Washington toward the coast in the future. And thanks, you guys. This was a lot of fun and it's great to see everyone.
Yeah. Yay. Olia, what about you?
I think a lot of these routes already been mentioned, so but because I'm on the west side, like just personally, I tend to go out to the coast a lot more than probably other places. But I love the road to Bend as well. So any different way through Mount Hood as well, or down from Salem. So it's nice.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you, everyone. This is great. If you have other ideas of things that you want to hear, let me know. I will send out the YouTube link. Actually, I'm going to hit stop recording.